Hey guys, and welcome to the channel. I'm really excited. We are going to be going over the second power rankings for Roland Garros. Yes, I'm going to do one probably every week actually as tournaments go by, and we'll see whether there's any changes. I'm not going to make huge wholesale changes because someone's suddenly made a quarterfinal and I wasn't expecting it. But of course, as the top 10, I'm going to bring up the list that I made in the first video as well, and then we can go through it, see if there's any movements. Look, it's been a very, very interesting week. Of course, Alcaraz winning in Barcelona. Good win for Alcaraz, especially after losing early on in the Monte Carlo Masters. I think part of that could be down to fatigue. I think same with Casper Ruud as well, to be fair to both players. And, I think they both got to the final in Miami and then they went to the Monte Carlo Masters, probably a bit fatigued, I think, to say the least. So that's understandable. And then, of course, Andrei Rublev getting it done against Novak Djokovic in pretty devastating fashion, to be perfectly honest with you. And I think, a very good week, though, for Djokovic just to get games under his belt. So let's get the list up. Let's work through it as well, step by step. So before, of course, we had, you can see that Tsitsipas, Djokovic, and yeah, as the top two. Now, is that still the case? We'll talk about that. But then we had Nadal at 3, asterisk by his name, just because we were like, well, to be perfectly honest with you, yes, he's injured, but I mean, he's the GOAT, right? On clay, that is, anyway. Then we also had Zverev and Sinner in 4 and 5, Alcaraz at 6, Ruud at 7, Rublev at 8, 9 Apelka, and 10 David Fokina. A lot of people, and look, rightly so, saying that actually Apelka's a bit of a left field one. It is a bit of a left field one, and I'm happy to admit that. And I think that was just because I thought we had to give him a bit of credit because of the Houston win. A lot of people calling for Schwartzman. I think we'll get into that in a second, but Schwartzman has had a couple of very good weeks. It's going to be hard, I think, to keep him out. Let's, though, first of all, start from the top down. I think let's do that again. So number one is quite difficult now because Tsitsipas had a pretty good start, I thought, to Barcelona. Of course, made the final last year, but then he came up against what can only be described as a wrecking ball machine in Carlos Alcaraz. Now, you might say to me, should he still be at number one? I think it's very hard to know who's at number one now because of that. Now, it was a quarterfinal, it was a three-setter, and Alcaraz, to be perfectly honest with you, played some unbelievable tennis. And I just think it's not a particularly good matchup for Tsitsipas, to be perfectly honest with you. Does Alcaraz winning mean that Alcaraz should be at number one? I don't think so, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. I think we have to give Tsitsipas his due, considering he won a Masters 1000 tournament. And as we get through Madrid and then Rome, it'll kind of take shape, right? The 500 at Barcelona, I think, has less weight than a Masters tournament, of course. In my eyes, it does anyway. And same with then Belgrade being a 250. It also, I think you have to take into consideration the opposition. And I think Rublev beating Novak Djokovic, obviously, albeit a Djokovic not fully match fit, is a very good win. Probably a better win than Alcaraz beating Carreño Busta, but then he beat Tsitsipas, so his route was harder than Rublev. So we'll look into all of that. So for me, I think Tsitsipas, I think he stays at number one, or does he? I think he does. And I'll tell you why. I thought he played some good tennis in Barcelona. I think, look, as I said, it's not a good matchup for him, the Alcaraz matchup. He clearly struggles against Alcaraz. And I just think the intensity that Alcaraz plays at and how well he strikes the ball, the variety in his game, Tsitsipas finds it difficult to be able to dictate points with his forehand, even on clay. And that is really his forte. I think against pretty much anyone bar, well, any player, if your name's not Nadal, Djokovic, or Alcaraz, he'll on clay. I think he is the man. To be perfectly honest with you, I think he is someone who will dictate points on the forehand, especially on the 1+ shot. He runs around the backhand better than almost anyone. I think himself, Nadal, and Rublev. I think for me, the best players on tour to run around their backhand onto the forehand side, hits the in-twin forehand greatly, or great even. And then also, I think his ability and willingness to come to the net is good. He doesn't always hit the best approach shots. I think someone's can be a bit safe, but generally it's good. Alcaraz, though, just is able to nullify all of that. Great passing shots, drop shots. And I think the issue as well is that the backhand's not a weakness for Alcaraz. And you go backhand to backhand, and Tsitsipas on clay, it does paper over the cracks a little bit on the backhand side. And I think he's definitely more comfortable on the clay on the backhand, given that he's got more time for the swing. It's just not good. The backhand to backhand rallies, Alcaraz just eats up Tsitsipas really in those. And on the forehand to forehand, doesn't really win a lot of those either, Tsitsipas, because Alcaraz has got phenomenal forehand. So the serve return dynamics as well. I think Tsitsipas is clearly a better server than Alcaraz, but Alcaraz is a better returner than Tsitsipas, and it kind of then levels out because Alcaraz, yes, is not as good a server, but returning wise, he is. And on clay, he tends to be able to hit his spots at the moment, Alcaraz, and the big kick serve definitely gives him some success as well, especially on the second serve. So, look, I think all in all, I'm happy to keep him there for now, but I think he's definitely in danger. I think the only reason I keep him there is because Djokovic lost in the final, and there's some question marks I think around, you know, his match fitness really, and I think if he'd played better opposition, Djokovic, I think he goes to number one. Even though he only made the final, he didn't win it. I think he goes to number one because I think the issue is he did play some good players, and Kekmanovic is a good player. He's in good form, but Zher, not really for me. Khachanov was a pretty good win, I guess. That's not a bad player, but I mean, Khachanov is really the level of opponent that is pretty standard from what Tsitsipas was ended up playing, I think. So I think we've got to be very, very, very realistic about the level of opposition as well. I don't want to just say, well, Djokovic made a final. Let's just chuck him up there to number one. Like, let's look at how he played, who he played against. And yeah, I think that's what we need to look at, to be perfectly honest with you. So, Tsitsipas, I'm happy to say number one for now. You may not agree. Let me know if you don't as well. I'm happy, especially in the comment section. You know what I'm like, guys. I'll always try and reply to all comments on the videos. So do let me know your thoughts. Number two, Djokovic. Happy to stay with that. Number three, Nadal. I'm happy with that as well. Now, this is where it gets interesting, I think. So, and I'll quickly explain, actually. I should explain. Djokovic, I think, deserves to stay at number two because obviously just made a final. Nadal's still injured. I think for now, I think he kind of just occupies at number three until we see him back. Hopefully, we see him back in Madrid, but we don't know 100%. I think, obviously, you have to remember these power rankings are based on current form mainly, number one. Not just current form in the year, which is a factor, but in the clay court swing so far. And then on top of that, then looking at kind of historical results, etc. Right, but that's not as big as recent events, if that makes sense. So that's why Nadal's at three. Otherwise, for me, Nadal's the favorite for Roland Garros. He'd just be at one, and then there's no point doing a power rankings, right? So just so that people are aware of it, and they think, why is he not at one, or why is it should be Nadal one, Djokovic two, and that's how it should be, for example, or the other way around. Right. So top three for me is nailed on still at the moment. We'll see if there's any changes. There could be, especially coming to Madrid. I mean, if someone goes on a ridiculous run in this top 10, you just never know. But number four downwards, I think we need to make some changes. Now, Zverev at number four, he didn't play, so it's pretty hard and harsh, I guess, to say he shouldn't be there. But I don't think he should be there. I think Alcaraz has now leapfrogged Sinner into number four. And the reason I say that is because I put Alcaraz and Ruud at 6 and 7 because of how they performed in Monte Carlo. But the more I look at it, the more I think about it, a factor was the Miami Open beforehand. And if we then factor that in, which I didn't do last week, then I think Alcaraz, given he's just now won Barcelona, given he came through a life and death match against Alex de Minaur, on the Sunday, saved match points, then played Pablo Carreño Busta, beat him in straight sets in just over an hour in the same day. a very, very solid Buster, for me, that is incredible after just beating Stefanos Tsitsipas as well. So I think, look, we've got to give him his kudos. He is an absolute gun of a young player, and I'm going to put him in at number 4. That's how I see it. And I'm happy to keep Sinner at 5. Am I? No, we've got to be consistent. We'll put Zverev at 5, Sinner at 6. I think that's how it should be, to be fair. That's kind of how I see it. Let me know your thoughts. But I think surely, if we're looking at it on recent form and taking in other factors, I do think that's how it should be. Now, Sinner didn't play either, neither did Zverev. So I think we can give both of them the benefit of the doubt. We just keep them there at 5 and 6, right? Because they haven't played. It's unfair. But I think Alcaraz, it's fair enough for him to leapfrog Zverev and Sinner. So Alcaraz at 4 for me, Zverev at 5, Sinner at 6. That's how I've got it. Now, Zverev, of course, hasn't played, so we'll see how he goes in Madrid. Same with Sinner. Alcaraz, I'm hoping he takes a rest. It'd be interesting to see whether he plays Madrid or not, because he looked all strapped up, really, in Barcelona. I'm not quite sure whether it's a particularly good idea for him to be playing every clay court tournament possible for Roland Garros, because he'd like to peak at that point. I think he'll end up being, and again, I'm not a betting man at all, and never will be, but like he'll be the 4th, 5th favorite maybe. Now, Tsitsipas, you might look at it by the way as well and say to me, Tsitsipas is at number 1, but he just lost to Alcaraz. That's just a bad matchup. I think if we look at it though from Tsitsipas generally against anyone, and Alcaraz generally against anyone, I think form-wise, Tsitsipas deserves to be at number 1 because of the Monte Carlo win, right? He's won it back-to-back years as well. Last 12 months, I think he's been the best clay court player. Got to the final of Roland Garros. It deserves to be there. So Alcaraz for me, definitely there. Zverev at 5, I think is fair. Sinner at 6, fair as well. Ruud at 7. Now, this is an interesting one because Casper Ruud, I've been a little bit disappointed with him. And, the Miami Open and then obviously playing Monte Carlo, fine, understandable. But then in Barcelona, he lost in the quarterfinals. Now, you might say, well, Tsitsipas lost in the quarterfinals. That's true. But Tsitsipas lost to Alcaraz, who went on to win it. And it's just a bad matchup. Losing to Pablo Carreño Busta, especially given that he won the first set, Casper, and then lost the second set, tiebreak 10-8, then lost the third set 6-3, that will hurt a little bit, for one. And for two, I think he'll be disappointed. And I think that warrants Rublev going above Ruud after a very, very good tournament where I thought Rublev played some fantastic tennis. I think it's only fair that Rublev goes above Ruud. So Rublev at 7 for me. Look, he beat Novak Djokovic in the final. Yes, Djokovic in the third set had nothing left, which is why Djokovic got bageled. Let's be honest. But the first and second set he lost in a tiebreaker, fine. But he's still there, right? Still there, tiebreaker. First set was really, really good. Like, genuinely, I thought it's some of the best clay court tennis I've seen him play in a while. Some of the best tennis in general I've seen him play in a while. Because, look, for me, right, he is such a talented player, Andrei Rublev. He has a lot about him. But the biggest issue for him is that I just think for me, right, there's a big issue. There's a big issue with his variety. He is one of the best timers of a tennis ball on tour for me, for sure. He crunches the forehand, huge amount of topspin as well, and pace. Great to see. But the biggest issue is he just doesn't have variety in his game. And someone mentioned it on one of the live streams I did as well with the GTL guys. So I did it on that channel. And also in the post-match review I did on here, that, look, the issue Rublev has is he needs to work on different facets of his game. He doesn't really have a drop shot. He played, I think, one in the third set, and that was it. On clay, if you want to have success, if you want to go deep at Roland Garros, you need to have a good drop shot. Not even just a good one. He needs to have a solid one. So I think it's a massive shame that he doesn't have more to his game. Because if he did, he would be up there, I think, to be perfectly honest with you. On the clay, he's able to access his forehand easier, especially if he's making a lot of first serves, opens up the into-in forehand, the into-out forehand. All he wants is to make as many forehands as possible. Let's be honest. That is Rublev's tactic. At the net, I think he's improved a little, but I would like to see him come more to the net as well. I think why not? He's got such a good weapon in the forehand. And even to be perfectly honest with you, the backhand is so much improved. The backhand on the line, the amount of winners he's able to hit now through that wing is really impressive. And before I thought it was just a huge weakness, it's now become a pretty reliable tool for the most part. So forehand and backhand, we're saying, okay, pretty good. Don't need to worry about that too much. Just that's more about mentality and shot selection. The backhand slice is almost non-existent. I think he does hit it at times, but it's not great. He needs to improve that. That's not so much of an issue on clay, you'd say, of course. But the drop shot needs to be improved. Needs to play it more. That's for sure. Let's see what he's got on the drop shot, especially if he's pushing people back so far behind the baseline. With those hammer forehands, the drop shot doesn't need to be particularly good. It really doesn't. So I think that's what he should be looking at. And the second serve. Now, second serve, you can get away with at times on clay because it masks really your weakness in kind of having less MPH on that shot. But, I think he can still improve and bulk it up a little bit. Yes, he hits it pretty loopy with kicks. So, again, as I said, you can get away with it at times, but people should adapt. And I think Djokovic would have adapted better if he'd been more match fit. I think he would have played and returned better, and Rublev would have been in more trouble then in that sense. So I think something to improve on. But what I was really impressed with Rublev is his depth. The depth that he was hitting the tennis ball with in the rallies, managing also to be almost a human backboard at times. I'm taking that from one of the comments, actually, from one of the subscribers. Thank you. He really was. He was a backboard at times. He was able to actually play Djokovic at his own game at times where he would last longer in the rallies. And that to me was surprising. It was shocking, but it was a pleasant surprise, to be perfectly honest with you. It really was. I was really, really, really happy with it. I was just thinking, look, this is what we need to see. We need to see Rublev not take the risk so early that it's harmful and he makes so many unforced errors, but be calculated, clinical, and that is exactly what he was for the majority of that match. He really was. Saved some break points at times in crucial moments, especially in the second set. Yes, he went on to lose that set, but to take it to a tiebreaker, he had to save those break points. And then who knows, he wins that tiebreaker, and then you look back at those points and would have said, right, okay, that made the difference, right? So I think mentally he's becoming a lot better as well, and that is a huge, huge plus because he has had meltdowns in the past. He's got really angry with his corner with himself. Smash racket, smash. I mean, he's hit himself, I think, hasn't he, a couple of times and injured himself with the racket. So, yeah, good for him. He definitely deserves to be at number 7 for me. I don't think he has quite warranted the win warrants him going above Sinner and Zverev to join Alcaraz at number 5 because it's a 250. That's the main thing. And I think also the fact that he beat Djokovic fine, but everyone else, and again, this is absolutely in no way like meant with no offense, but just not as high level of opposition as Alcaraz. So Rublev and Rude. Now, Apelka at 9, I think I'm going to have to take him out just because he hasn't played in so long. And that's not necessarily his fault, but in a way it is because I think you just need to have that kind of breadth of experience. And I know he's playing in the Bavarian International, but it's not really playing much, Riley Apelka. And I think we need to see him in more tournaments. So we'll see how he gets on in that tournament. But for me, I mean, yeah, I think Schwartzman deserves it. And I know last week you guys were saying he should have been in there instead of him. I think at the time, obviously he'd won Houston and Schwartzman had got to the quarterfinals of the Monte Carlo Masters, lost to Tsitsipas in that crazy match where he was 4-love up in the third set. This week, though, he made the semi-finals and he beat some good players. I mean, he beat McDonald, Musetti, Felix, FA, and then also, ended up losing to Buster fine. But Crenabus is a good player, right? So there's no harm in that. So for me, Schwartzman definitely warrants being in there at number 9. And then number 10 is David Fokina. Obviously, he didn't play because I think he was injured. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt, I think, because he's injured. And I think we'll keep him in there for now. But we'll see how he gets on. I'm actually interested to see whether he'll be playing. Is he playing this week? So obviously, by the way, PCB lost to PCB is another player that I'm thinking of potentially chucking in there instead of Daric Fokina. I'm kind of wrestling a little bit with it because he made the round of 16 at Monte Carlo, lost to Zverev, which is there's no shame in that. But then obviously made the final of Barcelona, beating Sonego, Ruud, Schwartzman. I mean, that's a pretty good run, to be perfectly honest with you. Daric Fokina, yes, he's made the final, but I don't know. I mean, he's playing this week. Okay, he's playing this week. Let's see. Let's see how he gets on. Is Pablo Carreño playing this week? Is the question as well. I mean, he might not be playing right. No, he's not playing this week. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I think it's fair. I think it is absolutely fair to put Carreño in there. I understand that David Fokina made the final of the Masters tournament, but I think given that Carreño made the round of 16 and then also the final of Barcelona, I think, look, we've got to put him in there, especially because the level of opposition. I know David Fokina played some good players, but actually, to be perfectly honest with you, Pablo Carreño's run to the Barcelona final is probably better than David Fokina's run to the Monte Carlo Masters final. I know he beat Djokovic in the second round. Let's be perfectly honest with you. Djokovic wasn't, I mean, he's nowhere near his best at that point. And I just think, yes, David Fokina played well. Great. But let's see. He's on the fringes for me. If he has a really good week in Portugal, then look, we can chuck him back in. But I think this is all about current form, recent form. And I think we've got to be fair. And that is how I'm seeing it at the moment. So let me know what you guys think as well. Tsitsipas, Djokovic, Nadal, Alcaraz, Zverev, Sinner, Rublev, Ruud, Schwartzman, Carreño. That is my top 10 at the moment for the power rankings. On the fringes, we've got kind of Daric Fokina floating about. Let's see how he gets on. We've got other people as well. I mean, Dimitrov played well in Monte Carlo, but is he going to play well in other tournaments? I don't know. I'm not really too sure on that. Can someone like a Felix make a good run? Who knows, right? There's loads of people kind of flying about potentially as well. But at the moment, that's my top 10. And yeah, I'm very much looking forward to seeing your guys' thoughts in the comments. So do comment, let me know your thoughts. I think PCB, just the level of results on the opposition deserves to be in there. And the rest, I think, is pretty solid. So let me know your thoughts anyway. Please remember to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. If you are listening or watching on a podcast platform, do subscribe, leave a review, leave a rating. It really does help us out. Thank you. Do appreciate it. And if you're on YouTube, of course, subscribe and click that notification bell as well to get alerted to all the new videos. See you soon. We'll be releasing a WTA version of this as well. So stay tuned for that as well. Thanks very much, guys.